things. It was Ellie and Mai's first time ever to Disneyland.
Was it like you thought it would be?
No, I had been built up with all of these people who said, well, I love it because it's so well engineered, that I held it to too high of standard. So I wasn't comparing it to Six Flags. I was comparing it to this idealized version that people have been telling it
right,
about.
like a utopian society.
It didn't reach that. I still had a great time. I still enjoyed it and wanted to go back. I'm not trashing it, but there was part of me that was like, oh, I'm not blown away because everything they're doing, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what they were supposed to do. And there would be a few times where like, well, I really thought they, go above and beyond here, but apparently they're just going to be adequate.
Maybe they should hire you, Tom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
To do some engineering for them.
Tom Merritt, we need a little cynicism here on the part. I think part of
professional criticizer
or complaining or anything. I wasn't, but there were things I'm like, oh, well, you can see the trash cans, stuff like that. Like,
oh, right. Yeah.
So much that I was like, it's perfect.
Right. Yeah. Like
it's weird because they get you as a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And when you go through all the structures that they build are, they're built on a scale that gives you a deceiving sense of scale. So when you go down to Main Street, the top floors are actually built 60% of the size as the lower
shorter
floor.
Yeah.
You don't recognize that when you're a kid because you're shorter, you're closer to the ground, and when you look at things, you look at them staring up. So it seems like this grandiose building. And as you get older, they add all these new things. And so what happens is your nostalgia runs into your excitement for the new stuff, that you constantly just build this well of like goodwill for the park because it's where you have fun.
It's the happiest place.
It's pretty happy.
Pretty darn happy.
It's pretty darn happy.
I've only encountered one surly. What do they call them? The employees. They're cast members. Not the ones that are in the character outfits, but just like the people run the rides. I remember one she was really sour. She was like, must have had a bad day or something.
What ride was it?
I think it was the Matterhorn.
I love the Matterhorn.
Did you say what's the Matterhorn?
Oh, you're a little crunchy, Sarah.
Really? Okay.
Oh, noticed it. We'll uncrunch her. No problems. Crunch it.
Power cycle and a little USB swap.
Oh, you sound great.
Oh, wonderful.
Like butter. What do you think? Should we begin then?
I think we should.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, Shannon, could you start us off by reading line 3?
Sure.
Today? That would be awesome. Let's do it in like 20 seconds.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody strap in. Keep your arms and legs inside the podcast at all times. You must be this tall.
Enjoy Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Be on the back.
Dole Whip.
Anyone with the heart.
They'd still have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, right?
Yes, they do.
1.
Good.
Shannon, go.
Thanks to everyone who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, October 31st, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from the Doctor's TARDIS, I'm Shannon Morse.
From a non-exciting vehicle or location, I'm Roger Chang, the show's producer.
Pretty exciting. Come on. Hey, it's Halloween. And
Halloween.
Shannon dressed up as the current Doctor Who. I did my usual thing and threw on a lab coat, so I look like a doctor. And
Roger and Sarah declined to participate.
I was just going to go but
I technically am in flannel, so maybe I'm a 90s grunge kid.
You're a lumberjack.
There you go.
We have treats for you. They are things you should know about technology.
Apple added its performance management feature to the iPhone 8, the 8 Plus, and the 10 in iOS 12.1. The feature has become a bit controversial because it slows down a phone's processor if battery degradation is detected in order to prevent random shutdowns. Apple was fined in Italy for using this feature in older phones without telling its customers beforehand.
Sprint reported earnings per share of 5 cents, up from a loss of 1 cent last year at this time. Analysts expected a loss of 1 cent this time as well. Sprint added a net 109,000 subscribers who pay monthly, down from 168,000 last year. Analysts had expected Sprint to lose 10,000 customers, not gain. A merger of T-Mobile US and Sprint is waiting for regulatory approval.
And Apple pulled back the WatchOS 5.1 update after some users reported it made their Series 4 get stuck on the loading screen, aka a lot of people calling it's bricked. Apple says, okay, we got a fix for that. We'll get it out as soon as possible. And if your update didn't get stuck, don't worry, you're fine. You don't need to do anything else. So they're not only going to have a fix to make it not do that, but also unstuck the Apple Watches that are stuck. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the efforts to get Mark Zuckerberg to appear in front of governments.
Yes, let's. Parliamentary committees from the UK and Canada have issued a joint summons for Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The chairs of the UK's Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS for short, committee, and the Canadian Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics, which I'm going to call SCAPE for short, intend to hold a special joint parliamentary hearing in Westminster on November 27th about disinformation and fake news. Other parliaments from other countries may join in. Zuckerberg has appeared before the US and EU, but he has declined to appear in the UK. Facebook has until November 7th to respond.
So it's not unheard of to have these joint parliamentary committees, but it's pretty rare. It's pretty unusual. And I love the idea of the UK and Canada, both with the Queen in charge, technically, of their countries, saying, who else wants to join? Anybody else? Any other legislative body? Come on in. We'll all team up and see if we can make Zuckerberg answer the fake news charges.
Well, but if he declines to appear again, then not that it wouldn't still be a fruitful exercise, but I mean, they can't make him come to Westminster for this.
They have said that if he ever visits the UK again, they will slap him with a mandatory summons, but he can easily avoid that by not going there, I guess.
Right.
I think he could probably get away with turning this one down too, because he says, look, I've been to the EU. I can't travel every country that ever wants me. But if the UK and Canada get one or two more governments to join this, then it becomes a big enough deal that I think he kind of has to.
Yeah, it becomes a what are you hiding from if he refuses to participate, particularly because Facebook is in a PR crisis of sorts, in the sense that Facebook wants to be thought of as much more friendly and fun and social than it has been in the recent last couple of years.
I feel like there's going to come a time eventually where he's going to have to go because it's going to look so bad for their PR. I mean, they've been having so many negative things written about them publicly this year. I feel like they need to do this to get in the good graces of nation states and governments.
Well, I think in their estimation, they will send someone. They haven't declined to send anyone. They sent their CTO. Maybe they could send Nick Clegg, the former deputy prime minister of the UK, back to the UK now that he works for Facebook. It's just a matter of who gets to have Zuckerberg, because that becomes a bigger spectacle if he does it. And I'm not trying to say he couldn't have gone to the UK, but he can't go to every country who wants them. So this is a smart counter to that. Like, great, well, we've combined the countries. Now you can just come to one place and visit a bunch at once. It's like Epcot Center for Zuckerberg.
Well, and Canada and the UK together with other countries possibly participating, that's pretty big. If Facebook were to send someone other than Zuckerberg, or for whatever reason just decline outright, it doesn't really look that good for the company.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Starship Technologies is expanding its service to deliver packages by autonomous robot in Milton Keynes in the UK. Users install an app and then get an address of a Starship warehouse. Then they have their package delivered. Once the package arrives there, the app will notify the recipient, who then can request the bot to deliver to them wherever they happen to be, as long as they're within a 2-mile radius of that warehouse. Starship says eventually they'd like to increase that range. The first month is free and then costs £7.99 per month. Starship hopes to offer the service in San Francisco as well by the end of this year.
Yeah, so the 2-mile radius is not because of battery life or anything. It's because of time. These Starship robots, if you've seen them, they're little low to the ground ice chests on treads, basically, and they've been delivering restaurant food. They've been delivering pizzas and stuff like that. So they don't move terribly fast. If you want to take advantage of this, you want it to be better than having it sent directly from the company you bought it from, because maybe you're not going to be home, right? So the benefit here, I think, is I'm not usually home. Maybe I'm out and about a lot, and maybe I'm a salesperson, or I work from home, but I am out at the coffee shop a lot, or on lunch. And this way, it can just come to me wherever I happen to be. But it has to be able to get there in a reasonable amount of time, or that advantage is lost.
Sure, like if there's perishable items or something that otherwise doesn't sit well in a warehouse. I love this idea. And the reason is because I don't use Amazon, even though I pay for Amazon Prime. In fact, they just charged me yesterday. I don't use it as much as everyone else, because half the time I'm not home. I don't know, the timing doesn't work out. Then I got to go to, pick up my package later at like some UPS store that's not really convenient to me. It's a nightmare. If I am within 2 miles of my home at any given time, which is usually the case, this would solve that entire problem. I mean, I guess I'd still have the box perhaps dropped off at the coffee shop, where then I'd have to get it home, depending on what it was that was delivered. So that could enter in another set of problems. However, I still get my package.
Not a great option for your wardrobe, but if it's a box of vitamins or something, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
I don't worry so much about my own delivery issues where I live, but I do worry about the robots themselves, putting them out on the streets and having them deliver. And given that they do run, kind of slow, I feel like it would be very easy for somebody to steal them, to graffiti them up, to take out its parts and resell them. So I hope that they've done similarly to what Lime and Bird have done with e-scooters, and they've kind of worked that into the prices of these whenever they do the deliveries.
Yeah, Starship has been operating in multiple places around the world, both in the Europe and the United States and elsewhere, as restaurant delivery for a while. So it seems as if they have overcome those challenges. If anybody works for Starship or has used this and knows particularly what steps they take to prevent that kind of tampering, et cetera, specific, not so much the making sure the package is only delivered to the right person. That's fairly easy to do with apps and locks, but making sure somebody can't just like pick the thing up and make off with it and disassemble it, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I'm just a jaded person in general, but Shannon, I'm with you. It's like, this seems like something that would be like, a cool thing to Instagram. Like, I got my robot. You graffiti it up or otherwise tamper with it, or something where it's like,
put my show sticker on it.
Yeah.
Sure,
they are monitored, so maybe that's one of the ways that they can keep it from happening.
That's true.
Nature has an article about the rising popularity among data scientists of an open source computational notebook called Jupyter, spelled Jupyter. Jupyter lets users collaborate on software code, computational output, explanatory text, and multimedia resources in one document. So one simple way to try to explain it, you've got a web interface, you put in some code in a cell, you put in some code in the next cell, you send it to a cloud kernel that operates that programming language, and then you see how your code has handled the data that you want it to handle, and then you can make changes to there, and you can collaborate with other people, like kind of a Google Docs sort of thing. Jupyter has an enthusiastic group of users who also develop it, so it's really been making great strides in adding functionality. It can now handle dozens of programming languages. By one count, there are more than 2.5 million public Jupyter notebooks on GitHub. That's up from 200,000 back in 2015. And there's a beta of Jupyter Lab that launched back in January. It's more of a computing environment. A single notebook can usually just communicate with one kernel. This allows you to operate multiple environment or multiple kernels and cut and paste and collaborate with a little more functionality. In fact, I want to know if anybody out there in the audience uses Jupyter. Could you send us a 1 or 2 line explanation of what you think it is, what do you think it's important, and any cool examples of how you've used it to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Well, I'm not a data scientist, and I've never heard of Jupyter before. So yeah, I especially because when I read the explanation of what it is, it's like, oh, it's like GitHub, but no, it's different. It's actually
on GitHub.
Right. Yeah, it's there's an integration there, and I'd like to know more about how people are using that.
You're not wrong, though. It's a little bit like GitHub meets Google Docs. I wonder if that's an accurate enough description of it. But yeah, I noted it because it's an open source project that's gaining wild use in a specific niche that is really important. Data science is one of the most important disciplines out there in computer science right now.
Well, and with the growth like that since 2015, having 200K to more than 2.5 million at this point, it's been a few years, but that's some impressive growth.
Yeah.
We're both having cat problems. Apple's
Did you
new,
see that?
Yeah, I totally did. Yay, video. Apple's new MacBook Airs have a new T2 security chip, which helps protect the device's encryption keys, storage, fingerprint data, and secure boot features. The chip's new published security guide explains a hardware microphone disconnect feature that physically cuts the device's microphone from the rest of the hardware whenever the lid is closed. No software, even with root or kernel privileges in macOS, and even the software on the T2 chip can trigger the microphone when the lid is closed. The camera doesn't also disconnect because its field of view is completely obstructed with the lid closed. This sounds even more advanced than the Titan M security chip, which is currently available in the Pixel 3 phones that Google recently announced. And when you look at the Pixel one, that one is specifically to keep people from ending up being able to hack your phone while it's booting up, which is when it's the most advantageous for an attacker to be able to hack it, and is also the best time to do it because they would be able to get access to most of the vulnerabilities on a phone if they were available to them. So with this one, given that it does the physical disconnect with a microphone, I love that. It's just so cool. It's such a simple feature, but it's something that I feel is well needed for consumers.
Well, what about, if you compare to the way you described the phone booting up and the vulnerability that is within that sort of time frame, what about the laptop booting up? Because it wouldn't be closed in that case. Is there still sort of a Windows sliver that would be vulnerable, although this does sound very cool?
I would say probably, but I would have to do more research on it. And there is another case where if you have a laptop in physical possession of an attacker, they would still be able to get around something like a T2 security chip because your laptop would be vulnerable in that sense. Once an attacker has physical access to a laptop, they could do anything. So this is more likely to defend against remote attacks more so than anything, like remote access Trojans.
Yeah, there's two things going on here. So it's try not to get confused, folks out there. There's the T2 chip, which is highly secure and advanced, as Shannon talked about, and does some cool things. Then there is also the physical disconnect that is part of the rollout of the T2, which is merely mitigating if your computer has been compromised. One of the things that can happen is the microphone can keep recording once you close your laptop. So even if you're paranoid enough to think, well, when my laptop's open, maybe somebody can monitor my microphone, when you close it, it can't keep monitoring you. It limits the amount of information that can be collected from the microphone. It's, again, mitigation factor, not the only thing you need to defend against these attacks. Obviously, as Sarah pointed out, when you're booting up, or even if you just have the computer on and open, there could be other attacks that are able to access your microphone, and there's other defenses for that. This is just a cool new thing, like Shannon said. It's a very simple way. It's not even necessarily a feature of the T2 so much because it's a hardware disconnect. It's a design feature that is great.
Digital Trends and Extreme Tech are among a handful of outlets reporting user problems with Nvidia's RTX 2080 Ti graphics card above the normal complaints that you would always see along with pretty much any new hardware launch. The users report that the card is not working on arrival or failing pretty quickly after use, with multiple users saying they're on their second card after a replacement or have had more than one card fail. NVIDIA says it's not seeing broader issues and is working with individual users with problems.
Yeah, I found this interesting because when I saw the Digital Trends story, I thought, new hardware, always complaints. because they make millions of these things. And when you make millions of things, a few of them fail and then people complain loudly. And then Digital Trends or somebody else gets a great story out of it because clickbait, right? Not accusing Digital Trends of necessarily being clickbait, but The Verge, TechCrunch, they all do it, right?
It seems like one of those stories.
Yeah. But with Extreme Tech getting on board, and Tom's Hardware got on board too, it does look like there may be something more. And Extreme Tech wrote their analysis very well to say, we don't know that there's something more going on, but it looks like there are more people complaining, particularly because people are complaining that more than one card had this happen to it. That's unusual for launch hardware complaints.
Usually with hardware launches, you're going to expect like maybe a 10% or less will have failures upon shipping, and that's just going to happen due to manufacturing or shipping issues or whatever it might be. But given that people are experiencing multiple cards, if they're doing like a dual card setup, and seeing both of them fail, that could be a much bigger issue with the manufacturing in itself. And given that these are so very early on, like these are the pre-orders that are currently shipping out right now, it could be something that's so early to catch that hopefully NVIDIA will be able to fix it pretty quickly if it is a much bigger issue.
And NVIDIA says it's not seeing a broader issue. It makes me wonder if there's a regional issue. Is there one warehouse that had the bad batch and they're the same warehouse that's sending the replacements to people who got the first round of the bad batch, or some weird logistical quirk like that could explain it as well. But we'll try to follow up on this if we see any more significant information about it. If you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. We got another take on avoiding the notch today. The Nubia X is a Chinese phone with a second screen on the back meant for selfies, although it is also a fully functioning screen to operate that smartphone. It's a 6+ inch LCD screen on the front, but it's a 5.1 inch OLED screen on the back, which allows them to only have one camera. You don't need a selfie camera because you just use the OLED screen as your selfie screen when you use it as a selfie, and you use the LCD screen when you're taking a forward-facing picture. That way they don't have to have a notch, and actually they save money because they only have to have one camera set up. This brought to Shannon's mind the fact that we've seen a couple of slide-out cameras recently, the Mi Mix 3 and the Honor Magic 2, that both kind of just slide down so the camera pops up. That's a way to avoid the notch. There's also the Vivo and the Oppo cameras that have the camera that pops up out of the top of the phone to avoid the notch. There's the bug in the Pixel 3 that a few people pointed out and Google has acknowledged, where rotational movements get confused. And so the blackout of the screen for the notch happens on the side as well as at the top. Because there. And this all led Shannon to wonder, is the notch that big of a problem?
Yeah, so I was really curious about everyone's take on this, really, because I'm seeing this trend from overseas manufacturers, phone manufacturers, where they seem to be noticing a lot of hate towards the notch because of negative reviews on YouTube, or maybe articles written up, or this bug in the Pixel 3 that happened, and which is also getting an update, so it'll be fixed. And I have not experienced that on my Pixel 3 XL, so just putting that out there. But it made me think, is the notch really that big of a problem? Because I've been using my Pixel 3 XL for about a week now, and the only time I really notice it is when I expand a YouTube video to take up the entire screen, and then there's a very obvious black notch in the corner of it, kind of taking over some space inside of that video. Other than that, whenever I'm, using it for regular applications, I don't really notice the notch. And on top of that, Google has also added in the developer settings menu where you can change the notch, where you can make it disappear and just have a black bar at the top, like the Pixel 2 XL or the Pixel, or you can just add a much taller notch if you wanted to for some strange reason. Yay, developer settings menus. But it makes me
want more
question.
notch.
I want more notch. Yeah, there's a corner notch. It's the weirdest thing ever, but have fun if you really want it.
I don't understand why the notch is so hated.
So
I don't.
Yeah, why the hate on the notch? Would we rather want front-facing, speakers, like stereo speakers that are honestly the quality is quite good? And do you want dual front-facing cameras that offer you a wide-angle lens, which come with the sacrifice of having a notch? Or do you want to have a full front screen that has bezel-less edges with just one camera on the back? So,
well, sure. I mean, you say you use the word sacrifice, and I know a lot of people, aesthetically, you don't want the notch to be there. Okay, I get that. But yeah, it's sort of like, well, what is more important to you? Once you get over that, do you want these cameras? Because that's where they're going to be housed, and that's how it's going to work. I don't understand why so many folks are such purists about having that rectangle be notch free. It's not like there's an actual hardware notch taken out of the phone. I think the idea of something popping out of the phone and then popping back in, as nice as that sounds, just introduces like lots of reasons for sand to get in there or for it to break off. I don't like that at all. I would prefer a notch.
I'm the same way.
I get why people don't like the notch because I have the same reaction the first time I see one. The first phone I ever had that had a notch was the Essential phone. And I didn't like it when I saw it on screen in the demo when they announced it because it's an imperfection. And if your eye wants to see a perfect screen, you see this little blob that's disrupting it. But I have to say, in practice, I got notch blind. I didn't see it anymore. Like in the course of my day, and the same thing has happened with the iPhone 10. I just don't even notice the notches there. Like you just get used to it, or at least I have. So I understand the resistance to it. I think probably my favorite solution. Well, I got to say the Nubia X is really interesting. I'd like to live with that for a while and see if it really worked as well, because that's really elegant. Like just full front screen, no compromise. You got a full camera on the back. It's the best camera. You got one camera that's awesome for both things. You can't do Face ID or something like that with that necessarily, I guess, because you have to keep flipping it over. It's not terribly convenient. That's interesting. The slide out camera, especially the Mi Mix 3, which uses the dual neodymium magnetic rails. So apparently it's really smooth. That's pretty nifty. Also, again, you're going to do Touch ID. You're going to do not Touch ID, apologies, a fingerprint sensor for those, because it's not going to be easy enough necessarily to do facial recognition. But I kind of like the convenience of that. But frankly, I don't know if I care that much now that I've lived with a notch for a while.
Now, this does beg a question from me. If we can put something like a fingerprint sensor in the screen, and maybe this is way too futuristic at the moment, but if we can put a fingerprint sensor in the screen like we just saw on the OnePlus 6T, would it be possible to hide a camera or hide the speakers behind a screen on a phone?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would be possible. I feel like I have seen a TV at one point or another have a speaker hide behind the screen, but correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, I think it's perfectly possible. And the Honor Magic 2 has the in-screen fingerprint sensor as well, I believe. And no, I'm sorry, it's not in-screen, it's on the sides. So you have two fingerprint sensors, one on each side, and those buttons can be used for other things as well. I guess it's the Mi Mix 3 that has the in-screen fingerprint sensor, but there's lots of ways to go with this to avoid the notch.
Or do we actually need to avoid the notch?
Deal with the
I
notch.
mean, this is a very unpopular opinion, but I hate Face ID and I wish Touch ID was back. And here's why. There are so many times where my phone is flat, like on a desk surface, right? Like where I'm sitting right now. I can see the screen. I just don't want to pick up the phone. I want to do little things from where it is. Face ID is annoying that way. So, when I think about the advances in smartphones, Face ID, remember Touch ID, and now we have thinner bezels and all that stuff. It's like, actually, in practice, it's not always better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I notice it the most when I drive. If if it goes to sleep and I'm, at a stoplight or I'm parked or something, I have to like lean over. And,
Yes, it's the
you know,
it's the lean over thing. It's like, no, it's not hard to do, but
no, it's
it
not.
used to be something that I could do without having my face in front of the phone.
Yeah.
Kind of miss those days.
Well,
Anyway, thinner bezels, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Are you a notch lover or a notch for me?
Speaking of feedback, where feedback is great because we know what you want to hear more about on our show. That's our subreddit. You can submit stories and also vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Thanks to everybody who submits stories. You really help us out. It's really good to have a hive mind in there. Also on Facebook as well, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow.
Ooh, is that the mailbag?
Oh, it is, Tom. Funny that you saw that. It's at the perfect time. Felix actually wrote in and had some feedback on Google's Play Pass that we talked about on the show the other day. Felix says, Amazon had their underground program that offered free games and apps. It was part of Prime, but it was discontinued a couple years back. I still have a few of those apps, though, since they stopped the program. In regards to PS Plus, the games are yours as long as you're subscribed. If you don't renew them, then the games aren't accessible. Avatars, themes, and DLC for games are yours to keep, though. I'm sure I'm not the only one to clarify this, since not all of us are avid gamers.
Nope, you were the only one to clarify it. But thank you, Felix, for clarifying. And yeah, Felix adding to Aaron's comparison of Amazon's program with the potential Google Play Pass as well.
Well, thank you, Felix. And also thanks to Shannon Morse for being with us this fine Wednesday on Halloween, no less. Shannon, where can people keep up with what you've been up to lately?
Thank you, Sarah. You can find me over on Twitter. I'm at Snubs, SNUBS. I just posted a really fun, spooktacular Winchester Mystery House tour thing where I talked about, I think I caught a ghost on camera, guys. I'm pretty sure I caught a ghost on camera, so you should check it out. But
were you at the Winchester Mystery House?
I was at the Winchester Mystery House.
I love that tour. That's such a fun tour.
It was really fun. But if you're interested in just the tech stuff that I do, tekthing.com, where we just reviewed the new Cavo Control Center. It was really cool. And if you stay tuned till tomorrow, we're going to have a review of the Pixel 3 XL going up. So I'm really excited about that with camera testing against the Pixel 2 XL too. So that'll be fun. And ThreatWire is my other show. It's threatwire.com or .net, I'm sorry. And we just reviewed and talked about the news about an adult site that had their data leaked, and it was pretty big deal, even though it was a somewhat small leak. So stay tuned if you want to hear about all security and privacy news on ThreatWire for that one.
Yeah. And in fact, you get a little ThreatWire cross post every week on patreon.com/DTNS. If you're a patron, Shannon has been providing both audio and text versions of that. Little expansion on topics of interest. So go check that out as well. And if you are amongst the gamers in our audience, we've got gamers on this show, Patrick Beja and Scott Johnson, who get together once a month and talk about games from a tech perspective. That's a whole separate show you should go subscribe to right now if that's the kind of thing they're into. dailytechnewsshow.com/MVGB.
Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Thanks to everybody who writes in. We read them all and we try to feature as many as we can. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more or tell a friend at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then. Happy Halloween.
Ooh.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
30 minutes exactly.
Well, that's
nice.
Weird.
Yeah.
I accidentally something else is weird. I accidentally just closed my Google Hangouts tab, but I'm still with you guys.
Ooh.
There's no tab open.
Oh,
It's Halloween.
That's spooky. Because I was like, oh no, I thought I was about to be disconnected,
go.
but no, I'm still here.
I wonder if we'll disappear momentarily.
What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Nacho Libre.
Nacho Libre.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, let me know what else is there.
It's a notch for me.
It's a notch for me.
Ask Notch what your phone can do for you.
That's
I
actually
that one.
like
That's-
maybe the best one.
That's
I'm
my
voting for that
favorite.
right now.
Okay. There's also Notch Blind at the top.
Ask Notch what your phone can do for you.
It's
too good. I like that one.
Oh man, I thought
that's
Nacho Libre
unbeatable.
was best,
Yeah.
but yeah.
All right, that goes in.
The cornucopia of good Notch titles.
Notch Johnson. You never watched the show Son of a Beach?
That was the Howard Stern show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I it's funny. I remember that because a girl that I went to high school with was in that show. She was a
Whoa.
character on the show.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if she's still acting or not, but it was like, because from a pretty small town. So when people get on TV shows, the rest of us were like, wow,
Oh right, yeah.
TV star. Mm-hmm.
Don't forget us.
She was
Donate money and we'll name a basketball
she
court.
wasn't
Totally
very
forgot it
nice.
Oh, she did.
Sorry, Roger.
Oh, no. Sorry. I was clearing my throat. I was apologizing.
My goodness, my cat was being a little terrorizer under
Oh
me.
my gosh. I didn't see yours, but you obviously saw
Yeah.
Sam being
Most of our-
extremely rude.
Audience is on audio, so they would never have known. Although I heard some bumping around, so you explaining
Yeah.
that it was the cat probably helped them to understand.
That was
Yeah.
annoying. She was like, "Ooh, computer cables. Let me just
Black?
your
Is she a
power."
black cat?
No, it was Starbucks. The
Oh, okay. So it wasn't a Halloween related thing.
no, unfortunately, Luna is somewhere else. Luna is my little black cat, though. Little brat.
I love the name Luna for a cat. It's just a great cat name.
I got it from Sailor Moon.
What's the other cat's name of that show? There's Luna and
Luna and Artemis.
Artemis. That's good too.
Hey Artemis, what you doing?
Yeah, they're both named after parts of the solar system, and I'm taking off my blonde wig because, oh my gosh, it's itchy.
Oh,
I'm actually gonna take off my stethoscope because it's been pinching my neck this whole time.
There we go.
Costumes.
I would
man.
look at your images, but I can't because Hangouts is no longer open on my computer.
It has to be somewhere. Like it's in a
I
process.
know. I'm looking. I'm telling you, I'm looking. It's
too
so weird.
Make it
That
go
is
away.
really weird.
Oh, wait a second. I see what happened. No, okay. It was open the whole time. I somehow made myself a new window
Ah, gotcha.
rather than moving the tab around.
So I mentioned the Winchester Mystery House, and I honestly think that I caught a ghost on camera, like audibly.
Yeah.
It was really weird. Yeah.
Hey, go out through our gift shop.
did you scream at it, telling it to come out and reveal itself to everyone?
My husband and I were outside, and we were walking past the porch in the garden.
Mhm.
If you've ever been there, it's in the front gardens. And there was another couple out there, but they were like really close to the street, not close to the porch. And it's a very large yard. But I was passing by the porch, and I was just talking about whatever I was talking about. And then my husband stopped behind me, and he turned to the porch. And then I turned to the porch, and I was like, "Did you hear that?" Because we both heard footsteps on the porch.
Mm.
It was really weird. And my camera picked it up too. It picked it up really well. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to make a video. It was awesome.
And now the footsteps, that would not be some sort of like audio thing that they have on loop to like scare people.
It
That was
certainly
like part of the experience, right?
Mystery house.
Because we were out there for a while and
Yeah.
we were doing the candlelight tours. So I know people were walking around inside the house, but it sounded like it was right next to us, which was it was really weird. So I am skeptical.
I love Winchester Mystery House is one of those things like as a kid, it was like, wow, this is really scary. And as an adult, it's just like, this is really weird.
Yeah.
I used
But
to
in a
think
cool
it's like,
way.
these are the worst contractors ever because nothing's finished.
Well, because Sarah Winchester couldn't decide, she was trying to fool all the
Well, the whole
ghosts.
idea was that it was supposed to have a bunch of entrances that led nowhere to fool
Right.
the ghosts or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
The
Because
spirits of all the-
because the Winchester rifle, she felt
Yeah.
that
She
the
was the
ghosts
heir to the
were
fortune and the
yes.
misery of the rifle.
That's right. You know, my mom, please weigh in on this because I know you're listening. I think it was my great grandfather or maybe my great great grandfather was her chauffeur.
Whoa.
So that doesn't really change anything about the Winchester Mystery House, but yes, one would think he probably saw some stuff.
And
That's
he
cool.
used to wait to take her out in the car on that very porch that Shannon heard the footsteps.
And she used to walk
Hurry,
there.
get in the car before the ghosts do.
He used to pace back and forth, back and forth. Okay, it's probably not Sarah's relationship, but I'm just,
It's I don't
trying
yeah.
to add to the mythos.
Yeah. I think he probably just drove her around. But yeah, very, very wealthy woman, haunted by the ghosts of Winchester rifles past. Oh, it's such a good ghost story, isn't it?
It is. It's a great ghost story.
There's also another one that Natalie Del Conte told me once about something about someone. There's a ghost in a carriage that would ride up from San Jose, that area, up
Mm-hmm.
To
Francisco,
where?
like
To
to
San
San Francisco
Francisco?
or something.
Oh.
Like it was like a ghost story from like the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Like whoever, because it used to take a long time before we had cars and interstates.
Sure.
Funny thing
and
is, still faster than Caltrain.
Right.
something happened along the
Horse
way.
and
Now it's a
buggy.
ghost.
Well, you know,
A haunted buggy.
I just
a
take the
haunted
ghost
buggy.
bus.
I don't know that one. And
Mm.
she's from the East Bay, so she probably
from,
knows some
she's
lore.
From the South Bay, isn't she?
I think it's Fremont, so
Fremont,
southeast.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah, what is Fremont, East Bay or South Bay? It's kind of both.
It's on the east. It's on the east side, but it's.
Right.
I always lump it with the South Bay.
Yeah. Because it's far enough down there. It's a buggy.
With a ghostly horse and a guy and a gal in the back.
I'm very curious if we'll get any trick-or-treaters tonight. And will
I
I be?
wish I would get trick-or-treaters. I never get trick-or-treaters.
We
got a lot.
We get like
Last year.
2 in the old place, and so we just started turning off our light because it was like it's just not worth buying a whole bag of candy for.
Oh no, it's worth it. You just don't hand it out and you snack on it throughout the
No,
year.
exactly. That's why I didn't want to. That's why I didn't want to do it because that's exactly what I would do. So I'm like,
That's
this
why
time
you.
I'm like, okay, we bought candy. Better be some GD trick or treat.
You got to buy the stuff.
I
you're willing
think
to
you
eat.
would have some on your street.
I would
It
think
seems
so.
like a trick or treat. You don't?
No, I would think so too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's trick or treater friendly.
Now, our neighbors told Eileen that they're like, yeah, it's not too much, but I don't know
What that
what
means.
they're comparing it to. Like,
Yeah. Right.
so, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't know how it'll be in my neighborhood. I think there'll be a lot of trick or treaters out and about, but again, without our gate code, unless we
Yeah.
prop it open,
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work.
You'd have to work at it.
Yeah.
I think you can safely avoid it if you want. If you want to be that.
I don't mind. I mean, I like little kids in costumes.
I
I
don't
think
like having-
Otis will be probably a little bit worked up.
I don't like
but
having to work for it. That's my thing. I don't want to have to open gates. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
ring the bell and I give them some candy. Great. That's fine.
Well, I also in my new apartment, the apartment is on the second floor. So to go to my front door, I have to walk down a flight of stairs. Not a big deal, once or twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
but 17 times in a night,
Oh, so
wouldn't really want to do that.
do we refer to you as Luca? Or is that wrong?
I don't understand.
You live on the second floor?
Oh, that Luca. No, Tom.
That's not.
That's a sad
It's a
song.
very sad song. I know.
Goodness gracious. Who's
We
that?
had her-
Suzanne Vega, right?
Yeah.
College radio?
Oh no,
Maybe
I
a
don't
little
think
she
was College
precedes college
We
radio,
played,
I
we
guess.
played Luca on college radio. No.
No,
For sure.
I mean she was played on college radio, but
Tom's
she was,
Diner. Great song.
Tom's Diner. We played the remix on college radio.
Mhm.
Remember when she was on Screensavers?
I don't. What was
on
she doing?
Screensavers.
Did she have like a what was she doing?
She's saying that.
What was the nature of the the segment?
I don't remember. I think Dan Heward produced it, but I just remember her walking in the studio.
I don't remember that, which is funny because I'm Tom Stenner is like a great song. I would have been pretty excited to meet her. I remember when Chuck D came in. That was very exciting for me.
We had Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey as well.
Well,
Mhm.
not as
David Lynch was on via satellite. I produced that segment. He wasn't in the studio, but he was.
I don't want to touch anyone. I'll just talk to you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we had, back in those days, it was like, well, don't wear anything that morays and don't wear solid white. And, there was this whole thing like the bookers would send, a guest so that they could like be ready. And David Lynch was like, now I am going to wear a white button-down shirt and a black blazer because that's the only thing that I wear, period. We were like, okay, that's fine. Please just show up.
Please just show up.
Please.
Didn't give us any web content.
Probably
I
not.
remember.
I eventually worked out a system to get web content out of all the guests.
Which was?
Basically, I would either ask them a bunch of questions over the phone in the pre-interview, and I would write them out.
Right.
Or I would send them like, hey, these are the questions. We're gonna put. Let me know, if you could just give me a short answer, so we know like what to expect for timing and all that stuff. And they would write it up, and then we would cobble it together.
As an example, like you should be doing good pre-interviews with your guests anyway. Just use that, like Roger, and then everyone hated Roger,
and that's why I left. No.
Right, because we all revolted and we're like, web content is hard. Screw you, Roger, making the rest of us look bad. No, Josh Lawrence was my web producer most of the time. There was some other fellow that I can't remember the name of at this point, but it was great because
Tom Merritt. I'm right.
It wasn't you. No, it wasn't you. It was someone else that was on the web team. Anyway, but one of my favorite parts of the day was because he liked to give me a wide berth, and so like 2 cubicle aisles away, he'd say approaching lane.
Oh wait, is it?
And so I always knew like Lawrence is coming up, wondering where my web content is.
Is it Roman? Roman Loyola?
It wasn't Roman. No, it was a guy. It was. There was a new guy. He wasn't there. It wasn't Moynihan. No, it was yet another.
All right.
Well, I mean, you were his supervisor, Tom.
I could go through the list, but
Wait, is that in your shelf behind you as well?
Well, no, at some point it's just going to end up with saying the name and Sarah going, I don't know, maybe that was it, and then that person's going to feel bad. So,
oh, well, I will
because I'll
come up with it,
and, and yeah,
sure, right,
so, or maybe it was an intern.
No, it was somebody that joined the team just later on, who wasn't there from the beginning.
It was a guy.
But Josh and Clarice, who is his cartoon cat, were one of my favorite things about working on the Screensavers.
Oh yeah, Clarice. I miss Clarice.
Oh, I do. Well, I mean, Clarice can live forever. She's a cartoon cat,
right?
So, I mean, unless she's been sunsetted for some reason. You could be drawn today.
No, actually. I don't know what Clarice is up to these days.
She's not in the FBI.
Well, folks, if you're watching the video and you know where Clarice is, email us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Audio folks, stick around. There's the secret of Clarice. Stick out.
Secrets.